Educational resources, there's all sorts of things. All kinds of different things. Here's the cool stuff. Here's the free stuff. Khan Academy, a great website, all kinds of free math lessons. You want to learn programming? Udacity. It's got the right price. It's free. Just Audacity without the A. edX is another one. Coursera is another very, very big website of free classes. Now, these are college classes you have to do through the semester like a college course. Udacity, you just go on and do it at your own speed. Wolfram Mathematica, oh, fabulous mathematics site. There is wonderful stuff on the internet. You know, the internet is sort of like a big lawn. You know, there might be a few dog doos on that. You got to avoid that, and, you know, porn sites and things like that. You know, don't go to nasa.com. That's not a nice website. The correct address is nasa.gov. You know, don't use the address box. Just use the search box. You'll stay out of that stuff. Okay. When I was in high school, I got to see this optical illusion room. And I got fixated on it. And I actually built one just like the movie did. So you got to show kids interesting things. There's the movie set with the fake steer they drowned, but all the other cattle handling stuff was real, which I really liked. And let me tell you, there were Spectrum people there, and they were not picking up the trash either. You know, this is what makes me nuts. They're everywhere. And here's the plant where I started out. How did I get in there? This is where you got to meet the right person that can open the door. And in the movie, it was the wife of the plant manager. But you know what it was in reality? It was the wife of their insurance agent. That's what it was. But you never know where you're going to find the person that can open up the door. And I was wearing my portfolio. This shirt now is in the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. I hand embroidered that shirt when I was in high school. I was wearing it. I was wearing my portfolio and I didn't realize it. People respect ability. Okay, great jobs for my kind of mind. Industrial design, there's a whole college major in that. Computer network specialist. Okay, today out at the feed yard, they had a convention planner come in and take their machine shed that they normally fix their feed trucks in and turn it into an auditorium. It was quite something they had to do. And they brought in all this gear, fancy convention gear, and set it up in the machine shed. Well, that's a great kind of job for somebody with on the spectrum. Graphic arts, animation, auto mechanic, fixing computers, photographers, working with animals. You know, convention AV technician. That's kind of, when I went out to the Emmys, man, they did all kinds of cool stuff with that. I was really interested to see how they turned a rather plain, ordinary Hilton hotel into this fabulous venue, and you're not allowed to drill a single hole in anything. And they did it. Okay, how about our mathematicians? These are your computer programmers, your engineers. Now the thing is, my kind of mind and the engineers have got to work together. And I get worried with some of the requirements we're having at home that they're going to screen my kind of mind out because I flunked, can't do algebra. But you need my kind of mind. Let me tell you why the Fukushima nuclear power plant blew up. They made a mistake that I would have never have made. I can't design a nuclear reactor, but if I'd been drawing up the concrete work, that's something I would be capable of doing, I would have been looking at these drawings and I go, wait a minute, we got a problem here. It's not too good when you live next to the sea to put your important emergency equipment and your emergency generators in a non-waterproof basement. That is why 4 nuclear reactors melted down, and they are still leaking into the sea. They made a visualization mistake. We need my kind of mind. You know, Steve Jobs wasn't an engineer, he was an artist. Okay, the verbal guys. Well, they'd be good speech therapists, translators, journalists, anything to do with record keeping. There's a lot of different things that they could do. We got to start really thinking about jobs. These slides are on this computer. Hopefully, you know, if you want to edit them into your show, nice. You better get them off this computer before the school comes in and deletes them for you. But they're on there right now. Okay, how about people with poor verbal skills? There's a lot of things that they can do. Some love to work with things like, mowing lawns and stuff like that. We got to start thinking about what people can do. It takes a village to raise a child. Parents and teachers, everybody needs to get together. I'm seeing too much where parents in the school are fighting each other too much. And then we have the problem of very severe autism. They're not going to be working on cars or sending ships up to Mars and things like that. Won't be doing those things. And this is the problem we have with the autism spectrum. Such a big spectrum. And you see, and this is a problem because the normal mind tends to overgeneralize, so we take the person that should be the computer scientist, which is half of Silicon Valley, and they get the same name. And I think this is some of the things where there's not enough expectations. We need to be developing networks, people working together. Conducting conference calls where you can just let down your hair and tell it like it is. All right, I want to just finish up briefly talking about some medication stuff. And I'm sick of all the fights between alternative and regular. There's, first of all, way too many drugs given out to little kids. It is just appalling. You got to look at risk versus benefit. Giving out powerful antipsychotics with really bad side effects to 3-year-olds, I think it's a super bad idea. You got to look at cost versus benefit. There's some stuff out that's expensive ripoff. Then we get into evidence of effectiveness. Yes, I prefer scientific journal articles. But let's say I can't find the evidence of effective for maybe trying some light blue paper or something like that. I'm talking about something that costs like $2 to try. It might work. And I've seen it work on a bunch of people. You see, and the problem with trying to do a study on that is if I have 20 people with autism, that might only help one of them. Maybe it only helps 1 in 50. Would it be terrible to have a horrible time in school because you didn't do something with colored paper? Okay, these are the antidepressants, things like fluoxetine, sertraline, citalopram, paroxetine. Now, paroxetine, then we call it Paxil. I think that has a different name here. I wouldn't pick that one first. It seems to have more problems than the other ones. I know a lot of creative visual thinkers that are doing just great on a little dab of Prozac. Keeps them off drugs and alcohol. Really, really good. You see, the thing is, a little bit of the right drug can really be helpful. I'd like to rename these as the anti-fear drugs because where they really work is on anxiety and panic attacks. I would not be here without antidepressant medication. I'm on an old-fashioned tricyclic. It's called disipramine. That's actually being rediscovered by the Army. Our Army is doing a really great job of rediscovering all the old drugs, all the cheap old drugs that work. Okay, these are the heavy guns. Way too many of these atypicals given out, and they have much worse side effects, things like weight gain, diabetes, tardive dyskinesia. Now, there's some situations where you need to use these, but I don't think giving them to 5-year-olds is a very good idea. There's some very, very aggressive kids, irritability problems, and where a little bit of this may work. Tiny doses of Risperdal sometimes work for sound sensitivity. Really super bad sound sensitivity, but tiny doses. In fact, Donna Williams here in Australia, she takes 1/4 of a milligram a day of Risperdal. That's like a dose so low it's almost homeopathic. And now she can do convention center. And that's so low you won't get side effects. Now, these 3 drugs, you want to do the low dose principle. You want to use the littlest, tiniest doses that are going to work. Okay, let's say we're doing something with supplements, we're doing something with medication. Try one thing at a time. Don't change your school at the same time you change a drug, or you do something with a drug, or you try a supplement. Also, on little kids, let's do some of the things like some of the diets first. They seem to help some kids. I'm taking B vitamins and magnesium. I pop a magnesium at night, kind of stops all itching and stuff I have, and I can sleep better. That can be helpful. Lots and lots and lots of exercise. That's helpful. Now, since medications can have a lot of side effects, let's look at your risk versus benefit. You try a medication, it should have an obvious beneficial effect, like, wow, wow, this really works. And if somebody's been on something for a long period of time and you want to get rid of it, you got to take it off really slowly. Now, where I see a big mistake, especially in people like my age or people, maybe 30 or something, they've been on some drug for 15 years, and there's always something new that comes out, and they go, new's not necessarily better. Let's say they're on kind of something old-fashioned, but it's just one thing, and they're really super nice and stable. Leave them alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we found some problems with different brands of generics not being the same. You switch generics, so this is true for any medication. Generics are not exactly the same. And it's especially a problem on any drug that is a time-release drug. It doesn't matter for what purpose it is. So don't be switching vendors. If you're, and if your pharmacy switches vendors, make sure they mix up the prescription, but then watch carefully. This is true for any medication. Is it going to stay the same? And don't expect any medication to have 100% control, because it will not. Okay, blood pressure meds. These can sometimes help with people that get kind of really hot and sweaty. And there's a book you can buy online from Future Horizons called Hope for the Violently Aggressive Child. There are a few kids that are just totally violently aggressive. And sometimes blood pressure medications work, especially if they tend to be real hot and sweaty. That's where the blood pressure meds, things like propranolol and old-fashioned cheap generic clonidine, some of these drugs can work. And then another class of meds is the epilepsy drugs. Drugs for treating seizures. Then they found they use them for mood stabilization. And for some individuals, especially some nonverbal individuals, you get a nonverbal individual, sometimes one of the epilepsy drugs works. But the bad news is you got to do the blood sampling out of here. That's the bad thing about this class of drugs. Okay, ADHD drugs and autism. Oh, classically autistic kids with speech delay makes them worse. But some of the kids where the Asperger's gets mixed up with ADHD, they work. You will know, one pill, love them, hate them. One or two pills, you will know. You got to look up all your drug interactions, all your herbal supplement interactions. I like to eat those green leafy spinach salads. They're blood thinners. Antidepressants are also blood thinners. You've got to be careful. There's a lot of herbal supplements that are blood thinners. You've got to be careful about that. Also, there's herbal supplements like St. John's wort that can mess up things like AIDS drugs and antibiotics. You've got to be, stuff interacts. You don't want to be taking any more stuff than what you actually need. I talked about special diets. I've been doing some B6 and magnesium, talked about exercises. The omega-3 supplements, the fish oil supplements, that's starting to get some good science behind it for just being beneficial to the brain. And this poor diet, more depression, that actually was an Australian study, got 1,000 tons of sugar out of the diet. Yeah, really good idea. Now, I have a typical family history. And the genetics is complex. The more kind of markers you see on both sides of the family, you're more likely to get a kid with some kind of problem. Father's side, they were all bankers. My grandfather on my mother's side was an MIT-trained engineer. We had anxiety and depression, both sides of the family. Mother's side, visual thinkers. Intellectual giftedness tends to get in there. You take out some social stuff and you get some, geek stuff. Well, we just want to end up, little Albert right here, and be thinking about, where would he go today? This is something I get upset about. This is an interesting book about famous scientists and musicians that probably were on the spectrum. You got a kid that's getting teased to death? This would be a great book for them to read.